Here we go. Okay, so good morning. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. I know I'm on the screen and here, but that's okay. I'm getting used to it. So welcome to Friday. Everybody got a good weekend planned? Fun weekend planned? No? Huh? Homework and sleeping and eating?
Wait, is it raining this weekend?
What's that?
Is that rain?
Is what?
Raining?
You're running?
No, no. I mean, is it raining? The weather?
Oh, is it rain? Yeah, it looks like it's going to be kind of a little cloudy and wet. I don't know. Maybe the rain will knock some of the smoke down. Does it do that? Is that a thing that rain does? I don't know. I hope so. I hope so. Okay. So what we'll do today is we'll finish talking a little bit about socialization. Well, we won't finish talking about it. We'll wrap up what we were talking about on yesterday. And then I think we'll get to the point where I have a movie to show you. I think we'll get that. We'll get to that point, right? Because that's as per your request, right? Okay, but let's switch to what we were talking about. Hi, come on in. Come on. Oh, and I forgot to mention as well that Amy's here this morning, so good morning. Good morning, Amy. Kanan's here, good morning to you. And Vicky is here, good morning, Vicky. And Shamimu is here, hello. And Gabrielle is here. So good morning to all of you. So we're joined by other students as well. So how many, we have 1, 2, oh yeah, Amy's there. Hey, Amy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Is Vera here? 18. Okay, not bad. Kang's here. All right. We're getting there. We're getting close. Okay. So yesterday, of course, we were talking about socialization, the process of learning society's values and beliefs and norms, right? This happens to all of us because, of course, we are born with really none of this programming. We don't really know how to do anything for ourselves, and we need to be socialized, right? And I said that this is more than socialization is more than just learning a bunch of knowledge, right? It's not just about what to do when and knowing this and knowing that. It actually, these values and beliefs become internalized, and they become part of the way that we see the world. And so, like I said, they become a set of lenses, right? Just like in the glasses. And they're a way that we kind of see and experience and interpret the world. And probably even more important, not more importantly, but also important, is that you really can't take these glasses off, okay? So for me, I've been socialized. I've been socialized as a white person. I've been socialized as a guy. I've been socialized as a Canadian. And there's really nothing I can do about that, right? I can't unsocialize myself. I can't change the way that I've been socialized. Really, the best I can do is to acknowledge the values that I have absorbed as a result, right? So I know what they are. I know the way that I tend to look at the world. I know, good morning, I know maybe what some of my biases are, right? I know what some of the things that I might not notice because, for instance, I'm not a woman, right? So I know there are some things that women would notice about society or notice about a situation that me as a man, I'm not likely to notice, right? I can learn to notice those things, but I know that different people see the world differently, and I know the way that I tend to see the world, right? I'm kind of somewhat aware of what my biases are and the way I tend to see things. And so, again, that's kind of the best you can do. You can't take off your socialization like glasses and say, okay, I'm going to look at the world objectively now with no bias. You can't do that, right? The best you can do is just know what your biases are and acknowledge them, right? And I'm, to some degree, I can do that, and maybe to some degree you can as well, or maybe by the end of this course you'll be a little better at it, maybe. Yeah, so these kind of social messages are an unconscious filter. They're a way in which we see the world, which again, we can't necessarily remove, but we can modify those things, right? We can learn new social messages and we can be aware of the ways that we tend to think about things. And so yesterday we did a little activity with these 14 or 15 people, if you want to count that guy. We did a little activity and we talked about we talked about who we thought was the wealthiest or the smartest or the most isolated or the most careful with money or who reads the most books or all kinds of things. And we made some predictions, we made some judgments about who these people are based on the visual information that we have. And we might be right and we might be wrong, but whether we're right or wrong doesn't matter in this case. What matters is that we can actually make these determinations in the first place. And the reason we can is because we have absorbed social messages, right? We know what old people tend to be like, right? We know what young people tend to be like. We have ideas about certain occupations. So person number 4 is a model, and so we can make judgments, we did make judgments about her based on her occupation, right? We might make judgments about people based on how they're dressed or the thing they have tattooed on their arm or whether they appear to be, wearing a lot of fancy adornments or whether they're not, right? And so again, the reason that we were able to do any of these things, right or wrong, is because we have absorbed social messages about people and occupations and the way the world works. If you hadn't absorbed any of those messages, this is an impossible task, right? You just look at these people. Who's the wealthiest? Impossible, right? Show me their bank statements and then we'll know. But again, we can do this sort of thing because we've absorbed social messages about kind of what people are and what occupations are like, and we can make judgments about these people right or wrong. So yesterday I asked you to read a little section of the textbook here, and we were talking about family socialization versus peer group socialization. And I think we said that peer group socialization is the group of people around you who are kind of like you, right? Maybe similar age, maybe similar interests, maybe you're in a similar experience, right? You're having, you go to the same school, your peer group is around you, and like we said, they help socialize you as well. And I don't know if the textbook said this, but maybe you probably instinctively know this already, that as you grow up, as a child, the family peer group slowly becomes less important and the peer group becomes more important, right? When you were 5 years old, your parents were like huge in your life, right? They were major agents of socialization. But now that you are 16, 17, 18, 19, your peer group is much more important, right? You're talking to these people, you're exchanging ideas with them, and so they're a more important part of your life, right? And so we were talking about some ideas yesterday about who's more important, your family or your peer group for socialization. And we had some ideas about that, and all of those were good. But I would want to add as well that the period in your life that you were in makes an important difference as well, right? So for a little 5-year-old child, yeah, their parents are hugely important in socialization. For some of you being 17, 18, 19, wherever you are, your peer group might be much more important than they were when you were 5 years old, right? We mentioned social institutions yesterday. What is a social institution?
They teach us how to behave and not behave in the society.
Yeah, social institutions teach us how to behave in society, and they tend to focus on kind of certain spheres of knowledge or activity, right? And so what's an example of one social institution? School, right? School is a social institution. The workplace is a social institution. What else? Media, the mass media. And so you can include television, movies, news, books, social media, all of that stuff in media. So media is huge, right? Huge agent of socialization. What other social institutions are there?
Government,
Government, the workplace, religion. What else?
family,
Families. What else? What's that? School, yeah, school or the education system. Society as a whole. Society as a whole is an agent of socialization. The criminal justice system could be included in there as well as a social institution. The military could be a social institution. What's that? Healthcare. Maybe, yeah, the healthcare system could be one.
What is not?
What's what?
What is not?
Wh- What is not a social institution? Uh, anything outside of what is a social institution? Again, social institutions tend to be focused in a certain area and they tend to fulfill a certain function, right? So let's just look at the education system. Well, actually, that's part of number 3. But as a social institution, what is education responsible for in society?
To educate the student.
Educate students. So there's a certain body of knowledge and there are certain skills that society has decided that you all need. And so the education system is there to teach you those things. What else is it supposed to do? Social? Yeah, it's the education system is there to teach people social emotional skills, right? Particularly when you're young, right? So when you're in kindergarten and grade 1, yeah, you're learning some information, you're learning to read and write and, do addition and things like that, but you're also learning how to behave with other people, right? The teacher's spending a lot of time telling you how to treat each other and how to behave and, don't talk when other people are talking and don't pick your nose and, put up your hand when you want to speak because it's polite and things like that, right? So teachers in elementary school are teaching you social emotional skills. There's information, but there's also, how to treat each other and how to behave, right? At this level, obviously, we don't do that very much because you all know how to do those things, right? It's mostly information here. What else is the education system responsible for?
Responsibility. Teach kids what responsibility.
Right. So that could be a social or emotional skill, but well, maybe it's different. Maybe it's different. Yeah, teaching kids how to be responsible people. What else?
getting them ready for the world outside of school and family.
Right. Preparing them for the world outside of school and outside of family, right? We, in theory anyway, we start this class at exactly 10:05, right? In theory. We start at exactly 10:05. Why do we do that? Because that's kind of the way work operates, right? If you're working a job and your shift starts at 9, it starts at 9, right? It doesn't start at whenever you happen to get there. It starts at 9, right? And so in a way, we're almost school trains people for the workplace. And people have pointed out, Ken Robinson, who is a kind of a educator, very popular educator, recently died, sadly, but he pointed out, and other people have too, that if you think about it, schools are created and operate on a factory system, right? And so think of schools as a factory, right? So where everybody comes in and starts at the same time, everybody gets a lunch break at the same time, everybody goes back to work at the same time, and then the whistle blows in the factory and everyone goes home, and you all are the product, right? And this educational factory turns out batches of you every year, right? Every year we graduate a class who are roughly the same age, every year, year after year. And so schools are traditionally, they operate just like factories do. And that shouldn't have been a surprise because a lot of people in the past were working in factories. And so in school, you got social and emotional skills, and you got training in responsibility, and you were given a set of knowledge that society thought you needed, but also it was training you for a certain type of work, for a certain type of environment. School was modeled on factories because when people got out of school, that's where they were going. They were going into a factory. And so school still, to some degree, operates that way. And people like Ken Robinson were questioning, is that the best way for a school to run? Is it useful for us to treat you like products that are churned out of a factory in batches? Is that useful? Or is there a better way to do school? Particularly because most people nowadays, at least in North America, are not working in factories, right? They're working in more creative jobs, jobs that are more flexible. Now with COVID, people are working at home. And so again, is a factory system useful for students who are going to go out and live a very different type of existence? And so that's still a very open question at the moment. Sorry, that was a bit of a tangent, but that's okay. What else is education responsible for? So knowledge and skills and responsibility. What about citizenship? Yeah. So the education system is responsible for creating good citizens. And so if you, what's that?
It shows you how to be a citizen.
Yeah, it teaches you how to be a citizen. And so if you took a social studies 11 class with me a few years ago, we would talk a lot about Canadian democracy and how it works, and what the prime minister's job is and how the government operates. And why am I telling you that? So that you can all be good democratic citizens of Canada, so that you'll know how to vote and you know how the government works. It's not an accident that we're teaching that, right? There's a reason. It's because the Canadian government wants you to be good democratic citizens. We're not teaching you how to be communists here, right? That's not the goal of education, because we're not a communist country. So every social institution is like this, right? They have a job to do. They fulfill a certain function in society, but also they reproduce society as it is. And so the education system is responsible for kind of churning out batch after batch of young people who are ready to be productive members of the workforce, productive members of society, and good democratic citizens, right? That's kind of the job of education within a country. And so, as I say, every social institution has a set of responsibilities like this. Slightly different ones depending on which social institution, but they all have a role. What did we say and that's kind of what we said the hidden curriculum was, right? And so I didn't mean to answer that third question as I did, but sometimes I do that. That's kind of what the hidden curriculum is, right? Not the stuff that's on the test, right? Not the stuff that the teacher says is on the test, but all of those behavioral things that are not on the test, but we're teaching you nevertheless, right? Do you think that schooling in the past for you has had a hidden curriculum like that? Yeah? What kind of things stand out to you that you were taught in school that weren't actually part of the real curriculum? So not things that showed up on tests, but behaviors or ideas that you were taught anyway.
Like how to collaborate with other person, like doing group work and stuff.
Right, how to collaborate with other people. Okay, what else?
When a teacher starts talking off topic, sometimes. But I mean that's a good thing.
No. Say that again.
When a teacher starts talking
Oh, okay. No, not quite, not quite. Hidden curriculum is not necessarily stuff you talk about in class that doesn't wind up on the test. It's all the things that we're teaching you without really being deliberate about it, right? So again, like one of the things, we're teaching you how to be on time, right? We're teaching you how to show up here, hopefully, and be responsible and be on time, because eventually you're going to have to do that in the workplace. We usually don't give marks for being on time. We usually don't teach you how to be on time. We just expect that you will be, right? Yeah.
Also, I think homework shows that you have a responsibility to finish it and, give it to your, I would say, boss and teacher.
Sure. In a way, homework is teaching you how to be kind of responsible on your own, right? How to motivate yourself. So somehow you have to get this done at home, and you have to motivate yourself to do it, even though, let's face it, you probably don't want to, right? Usually, but you have to find a way to make yourself do it so that you can hand it in the next day, right? And everybody comes up with a system to do that, right? They might schedule time, they might wait till the last minute, because that terror of the last minute tends to get the job done, which a lot of us do, right? We wait till the end, and then that panic gets us motivated. What other things, Vera?
Back home, they would place your class positions based on how well you did, and also have competitions and habits, just to show you that, like, everyone's competing against each other, and that's not really so.
Right. How do you mean class positions? Like where you sat?
No, like, based on your results, the overall results at the end of the year, based on how many people there are in your class, they will place you, like, you came first in your class, second in your class, and then after that they will tell you your position in the entire cohort.
Right. So if you didn't hear what Avera said that her school experience is one where students were rank ordered. And so at the end of the year, you're basically put on a list in terms of how well you did. And you know if you're first in class or second or fifth or 473rd or whatever, you know exactly where you stack up according to your colleagues, right? Your other students. Problem solving. I'm going to put a pin in that because I want to finish with the Averas, but yes, I want to talk about that. Yeah. So what's the value there, right? So in that case, the hidden curriculum is communicating to Avera and to the other students that you are in competition with each other, and it's kind of a winner-take-all sort of situation. There's only one top of the class, right? There's only one. And so somebody is going to win and other people are going to lose. And you have to compete, you have to work hard in order to make sure that you are on top.
Like, if you came in top 3 in your class, or you did especially well, they would reward you with, like, vouchers and stuff like that. So it's basically saying if you put in the effort, you would get rewarded.
Right. So yeah, so high grades are rewarded, right? And like tangibly rewarded, not just, good job, but you get something, right? You get a monetary reward. Yeah, and that's interesting. Like we assign, and this has come up in education too, is the idea of we assign number grades to all of you, right? Or letters, but is that the most useful way to grade your performance, right? If you take this class with me, is me saying, okay, Anna, you get a 72. Does that really say anything about what Anna knows or what Anna can do? Or is it just some arbitrary number that tells us that people who got more than 72 did better than Anna, and people who got less than 72 did worse? It's really all it tells us, right? And so the percentage system is basically just a rank order telling who did better than who else, but it doesn't really say anything about what Anna knows or what Anna can do or what she's good at or things that she's still working on. 72 tells us basically nothing, right? It tells us the same thing as your list does. And so, again, many people in education have questioned the idea of whether we should even have percentage marks to begin with. Because again, what does it really tell us about what a student can do? Nothing. It just tells us that people who got more than that did better, people who got less did worse. If you got a 50, it means you passed. If you got a 49, it means you didn't. But does it tell us anything meaningful about the student? No, not very much, right? Yeah, so that rank ordering becomes important, right? Whether it's not what you can do or what you can't do or what your skills are or what you're still working on. It's just who are you better than and who are you worse than, right? Sorry, Sabrina, you said problem solving, right? So this is increasingly becoming important in schooling of today. We're trying to get students to solve problems, right? Because again, the work that we're seeing is becoming less routine, less predictable. We're getting computers and artificial intelligence and robots to do all that stuff. We need humans to do things that are creative, right, and complex and that require problem-solving skills. So that's important too.
Other than lessons and stuff, they teach us how to sit in public places, how to have a smile when we're with other people, even in class, or speak loudly and clear. Other than lessons, we learn these things in school.
Yeah, and you learn how to sit and pay attention for a long period of time, right? And so this is something that is potentially an issue with the design of school when kids are younger, because if you have a 6-year-old kid, is it easy for them to sit in a desk all day and pay attention? No, they're 6, right? They've got a ton of energy and their mind is everywhere and they just want to run around and play and jump and do all kinds of things, right? But again, we're training them to sit in a desk for a good chunk of the day and be quiet and listen and pay attention, right? And so because school is often like that, the students who do best are the students who just naturally do that well. And students who are more active and less focused tend not to do as well. Does it mean they're not as smart? No, it's just that the hidden curriculum, we're basically grading them on their ability to sit there and be quiet and listen to the teacher. And some kids are just not good at that, especially when they're 6 or 7 years old. And again, does it mean they're not smart? No, they just can't sit still because they're 6 or 7, and kids don't sit still very well, right? Speaking from experience. Yeah, terrible student when I was younger. So what do you think? Is that hidden curriculum a good thing or a bad thing? Good or bad?
Some of it is good and some of it is bad.
Some is good and some is bad? Okay, so what's good?
I'll say the bad one. Like the ranking system, it is not good. Like maybe some student having a hard time during that semester, like they have family problem and stuff.
Sure.
And because like with their rank, they will have like imposter syndrome or something.
Yeah, right. So the ranking system is difficult because, yeah, if you're on top, it feels great, right? But only a few students can be on top, and the rest of them are, somewhere in the middle or the bottom. And it might not feel very good. It might not feel very encouraging if, you constantly come in 300th, right? It's not a good feeling, right?
It's good that they have the hidden curriculum, but the approach is what's important that defines whether it's good or bad. So you can teach students about competition and that there are winners and losers, but you can do that very easily with like a very like small contest within the school that you choose winners and all that.
Right. And so Avera says you can, the context matters, right? So what you're trying to teach them is more important than the fact that it's a hidden curriculum anyway, right? The other thing I might draw your attention to with that and with the rank ordering thing is that what's the value behind that rank order system? What thing is important? You already said it. It starts with a W. I think you said it, or did I say it? Somebody said it. Winning, yeah. So education is a competition, and you are trying to win, right? You are trying to beat your classmates and be on top if you're motivated that way, right? But is that what education should be about? Is education a competition? It's a place to learn, right? And maybe even more broadly, it's a place to figure out who you are and what you're good at and what you might be able to do, you know, out in the world as an adult. And so, again, is a system where everyone's trying to be the top student, is that very useful to anyone except the top student? Or is it useful to anyone except universities, because now universities know who to let in and who not to? Sorry, you can very clearly hear some of my biases in what I'm saying here, right? But again, should education be a competition? Is it about winning? A hockey game is about winning, but should education have a different goal? And if it should, then that practice of kind of rank ordering students that way is not in alignment with that goal, right? That practice is in alignment with a goal or with a value of it's a competition, and you have to fight your way to the top in order to win, right? What else do you think? Good or bad? Hidden curriculum.
I think it might be good, and as she said, they approach it in a bad way, but I think we need the hidden curriculum to be more open-minded.
Yeah, to be more open-minded. Yeah, and again, it depends, I guess, what is being communicated. Let me ask you this. So the hidden curriculum is things that are being taught, but they're not being taught directly, right? They're not on tests. We're kind of training you without anyone noticing. But do you think that teachers are deliberate about the hidden curriculum? Do you think they know what they're teaching students all the time?
No.
Not all teachers.
Not all teachers?
Sometimes teachers just assign it to, you know, like, lesser assignments from work, but it's a bigger project and you can't work on it alone. It's just delegating work, but through the process, the students learn how to work with each other.
Right. So it's very possible that based on the things that based on the things that teachers assign to students may actually learn some skills that the teacher didn't imagine that they would, right? Things can happen in a group, for instance, that the teacher might not be aware of, right? What else do you think? Do you think teachers are deliberate about their hidden curriculum or not? Do you think I'm fully aware of everything that I am communicating to you right now? Maybe, maybe not. It's hard to know, right? It's hard to know what you're learning from what's happening here, especially if you're not really paying attention to what I'm saying and you're looking at your phone or your computer. But one of the things that's important to point out here is that part of the job of education is to reproduce society as it is. And so I went to university to kind of learn how to be a teacher, but do you think my experience in school for my 12 years affected how I teach now?
Yes.
Absolutely, absolutely, right? And this is one of the reasons why it's so hard to change the education system, because everyone's been through it, right? And everyone's had reasonably similar experiences. And so when you when everyone goes through an education system where you move up through the grades, every year you move up a grade and the teacher gives you assignments, and then at the end of the year you get a number mark or a letter mark, and then when you get to grade 12 then you graduate and you get a diploma. When everyone goes through that same system, it becomes very hard to think about, well, how else could we organize a school, right? How else could we organize education? What else could we do? We're very, very used to a teacher up at the front of the room and a bunch of students sitting here looking and maybe sometimes writing and doing assignments. We're so used to that idea that it becomes very difficult to think about any other way that school could be, right? Because we're so socialized to think of this is what school is, right? And so we frequently do it the same, right? We frequently reproduce it all the time. Sorry, Gabrielle had something to say here earlier and I missed it. Does trying to convince students to view their country patriotically count as hidden curriculum? I think it can, right? I think it can, depending on how it's presented. But usually, yeah, the part of the goal of the education system is to create good citizens, and usually good citizens are patriotic, right? They usually love their country and want to serve their country or help their country out, right? And so everything we would teach in Canada to do with Canadian democracy and Canadian history, most of it would be to inspire pride in Canada, right? We want Canadian kids to love Canada and want to work hard to make Canada a better place and to vote and to run for office and celebrate Canada Day. We want those things to happen. And so, Gabrielle, part of that might be hidden, and part of it might be very not hidden. It might be very obvious that we want to communicate to students that Canada is a great place to live, and it has a interesting history, and lots of bad things have happened here, but lots of good things have happened here too. And so, yeah, I think it would be a little bit of both, depending on what you're talking about. Whew. Okay, how are we doing? Okay, good. You want to take a little bit of a break? Sure. Kang says sure. Can I get a second for that?
Sure.
Okay. Sala will second. All in favor? Taking a break? Nobody wants to vote? Democracy, people. Hidden curriculum. Okay. Take a break. We'll come back and then we'll get the movie ready, okay? so we're back. So that last part about social institutions and what they're responsible for and hidden curriculum, I guess that was, well, I don't know, it wasn't off topic, right? That was on topic, wasn't it?
Yep.
It was all good? Okay. We were halfway through that little discussion and I was like, should we be having this discussion or should we be talking about other things? But I think it was okay. Okay, here's what I'd like you to do next. I just have a little task for you to do before we get into the movie, okay? So the sort of point of what we're talking about here is that we are all socialized. We internalize many of these social messages and they become a lens through which we see the world. And so it's not just information, it's not just how to behave, but it also becomes a perspective, an outlook, right? And so that has a lot to do with our positionality, right? So your age, your gender, your sexuality, your religion, your nationality, the country you come from, yeah, all of those will influence the way that you see the world, right? So all of us are sitting here experiencing this class, experiencing Vancouver, but experiencing it through different lenses, right? We're not exactly seeing the same thing because we are working with slightly different programming, right? We all have slightly different operating systems. And of course, that's even true of people with very similar positionality. So do you think, for instance, that I see things exactly the same as every other Canadian white male? No, of course not, right? So there's always a little bit of variation, but in some ways we are probably coming from the same place, right? We have some general similarities. So again, just because you belong to certain social groups doesn't necessarily mean that you see things a particular way, but it does have an influence on, yeah, on how you see society and of course on how society treats you, right? And most importantly, well, there's a lot of important stuff, but also important is the idea that a lot of these social messages get absorbed without our being aware of it. And so that's that hidden curriculum thing, right? And so it's interesting to think about the hidden curriculum at school, right? What are you being taught without really being taught? But it's also interesting to think about that in society, right? In media, in government. What are we being taught that we don't actually realize that we're being taught? And one of the ways that one of the metaphors I like to use, since I'm already using the computer metaphor, is that yes, human beings are born as little computers, and yes, they have no operating system, and so we have to download an operating system into them for many, many years so that they can function in society. But sometimes I like to think about social messages almost like viruses or malware, okay? But it's a little different in that with computers, you don't want viruses or malware, right? They screw up your computer and they're a pain in the butt, right? But that's where the metaphor doesn't work very well. But for social messages, they often get absorbed just like a computer virus. And so computer viruses, you often don't know where you got them, right? You pick them up somewhere and they kind of operate in the background on your computer. You don't know what they're doing. Sometimes you don't even know that they're running. You need a antivirus program to actually see that they're there in the first place. And so social messages are like that. It's very easy to absorb them and internalize them, and then they kind of run in the background. They're kind of in your subconscious mind, and you don't really know that they're there. You don't really know what they're doing. You don't really know how they're affecting the way you perceive the world. You just kind of absorb them. And again, they're not like computer viruses because they're not necessarily bad. There's lots of good social messages that we absorb. There's some bad ones too. But again, we don't really know where we pick them up sometimes, and they just kind of run in the background, and we're not really sure what they're doing. Okay, so I've said this already, and I just want to jump ahead to a little reflection that I would like you to write or type out for me, okay? So very short thing, very simple. Don't freak out about it. It's not a big deal. I'll let you know when stuff is a big deal, but this is not a huge deal. But this is what I would like you to do. And I know I've got homework here, but I'm going to give you some time to do it in here so that you can email it to me and then we can move on, because my timing is a little off today because the whole hidden curriculum discussion took longer than I thought, but that's okay. So this is what I'm going to ask you to do. I'll give you maybe 15 minutes. 15 minutes. I'll give you 15 minutes, and what I'd like you to do is think about a social norm that you feel is important, and maybe one that people often don't follow, or a social rule that people break, or maybe one that you're not sure what the rule is. And so I want you to just write me a few sentences and say what the social norm is, how people break the social norm, and then what are the consequences when people break this social norm? So how do people try to correct that behavior? Okay, and so if you have a little pet peeve, or if you have a little thing that annoys you about people, this is often a good place to start. So I'll say mine. So one of the social norms that I feel people break, and again, whether you think this is a social norm or not kind of depends on the family you were raised in and your friends and your culture. But I really don't like it when people talk on top of one another. Like, I kind of prefer it when someone gets to speak and everyone listens, and then someone else gets to speak, so like one person at a time. But I know there are some families and some groups of friends, and maybe even some cultures where everybody kind of talks at the same time, right? And it's just like a schmoz of everyone talking and yelling at each other at once, right? And that's fine, that's okay. But for me, like, the social norm is like, yeah, let somebody say what they want to say, and then you can talk after that, instead of everyone just talking in a big schmoz. So that's kind of my social norm that sometimes I feel people violate. And so one of the consequences, I guess, is that people might think you're rude if they think that's a social norm as well. They might think I'm rude, and I might try to correct people by stopping every time someone starts to talk over me. I might stop just to sort of indicate that I don't want to talk at the same time as you. So if I'm talking and then you start talking, I'm just going to stop, and I'm going to wait until I get my opening again, right? So I might try to communicate to people that I only want one person to be talking at a time, and so instead of saying it, I might just stop talking when someone else starts to communicate that. But again, that's just my little thing. And again, that's not a societal norm. Lots of people just, especially friends, they all start talking, and everyone's listening and talking at the same time, and it's fine. But what I want you to do is just think of a social norm that people might violate, and what the sort of consequences are. So how do people try to get people to follow the rules? And it can be anything. Again, it could be something that bugs you, something that people do that you really hate when people do that, or it could be anything, okay? So I'll give you 15 minutes to do that. And then when you can email it to me when you're done. Just write a few sentences as best, in the best English that you can. Email it to me, and then
So we should not write on paper?
if you have paper, you can hand it in to me in paper as well. Now, maybe, is it easy to type? Okay. Yeah, type it up and email it to me. That's easiest. That way everything's in one place, and then I don't have to touch anything that belongs to someone else. No offense, but it's a pandemic. Sorry, Salah.
Can I type it in the email, or do I?
You can type it in the email too. It doesn't have to be in a Word document or something like that. But just answer this question in the best way that you can, in your best English, and send it to me. And then we'll move on. Okay, so if you're still working on that, that's okay. I'm going to move on, but maybe if by the end of the day you can email that to me, that would be lovely, and then I can look at it. My email is, how can I get it to all of you?
You write on the board.
Yes, I'll write it on the board once I get this other stuff going, okay?
When we search
You
your
wanna
name,
just write,
it just pops up.
Okay, or you can just type my name in and it should come up.
you just write down my name and the date, or?
Well, I'll know who, like I'll see your email address, so that's fine. Yeah, okay, so you can just search my name or I'll write it on the board after. Okay, what do I want to do here? I think I want to go to here. Yeah, here's what I want to do. So what I'd like to do next is I'd like to show you a very hard-hitting documentary. It's very intense. It's very rigorous. It's got a lot of big words, and it's going to be very difficult for us to deal with. No, I'm going to show you Mean Girls, and I've shown this film a bunch of times in social justice, and as it turns out, it's kind of an enjoyable film. It's funny. Students seem to like to watch it for the most part. But there's a lot of stuff to talk about in terms of socialization and societies and social stratification and how socialization works. There's a ton of stuff to talk about in this film. So it's actually very, very useful for this course. And it's enjoyable, and sometimes it's nice to do things that are enjoyable in class, right? Sometimes. So yeah, so it shows us the power of socialization, how social norms are created and enforced. It talks a little, or we'll see a little bit of social stratification and social groups. There's all kinds of really good stuff in here. So if you don't know anything about this movie, the premise for it is that a young girl played by Lindsay Lohan here, she is raised in Africa and she's homeschooled by her parents. And for I think maybe her like grade 11 year or something like that, her parents moved back to the United States and she is dropped into a high school and has to kind of adjust to this sort of school environment that she's never really been exposed to. And so she has to kind of navigate her way through this little society, the society of a school. And again, we'll see some of these things that we've been talking about play out within the school: socialization and social groups and norms and rewards and punishments and all kinds of things. We'll see all that happen. So for those of you who are in class here, this will be no problem because I'll just put it up on the screen. But for those of you who are online, I can't stream Mean Girls on my YouTube account because, of course, it's copyright material and I'll get shut down. So if you are online, here's what you can do. So you'll go to, and you could do this at home too if you have to, you can go to Columbia College's website. Thank you, Amy. You can go to Columbia College's website and you can click on library. You'll see I've got a little hand there. And once you do that, it'll take you here. And so you're going to click on Find Materials. And then you're going to go to Streaming Videos, okay? And at some point, it'll ask you to sign in with your college ID. I forget at which point. And then you're going to go to this page here, and you're going to go to, I think it's Criterion on Demand is what you're going to select. And when you do that, then it will take you here to this window, and you'll see a little search window, and you'll just type in Mean Girls, and it will take you there, and you can watch the movie, okay? So today, 25, we'll watch about the first 10 minutes, okay? Because that's kind of all the time we have. So online people, follow that, follow what the instructions that I just told you, and we'll just watch the first 10 minutes because that's all we'll have time for today. I have some questions to ask you about the film, and I'm going to post them in Microsoft Teams so that everybody has them online and in class. So those are posted there. Yeah, and so then we should be able to watch this. That is correct, Daniel. We are basically watching Mean Girls. But of course, I have questions to ask you because, of course, there are strings attached. I'm not just going to let you watch a movie for no reason. I always want something out of it. So that's what I'll do. So for online people, I'm going to sign off, and I'm going to let you follow those instructions and watch the first 10 minutes of Mean Girls. And that's what we'll do in class here as well. So if you have questions, online people, you can let me know. But otherwise, I'm going to sign off and let you watch that first 10 minutes. So have a good weekend. Good work today participating. Send me the little reflection thing that I asked you to do if you haven't done it already. And I'll see you Monday. So